In the map of the university communication ecosystem, there are three levels: educational, organisational, and institutional. Their consistency is a fundamental condition for quality. Let's look at the operational level. There is a specific stage in which the communication quality of a university is put to the test: the first contact with the student who arrives. The onboarding and orientation phase is the moment when a student, often new to the university world, receives a lot of information, dense, bureaucratic, and spread across different channels. How do they manage them? How do they understand them? And above all, how can we build them better? This is the problem we tackle in this lesson. Why is this phase so critical? The data make this clear. In Italy, according to ANVU, the first year remains the period with the highest risk of dropping out, with particularly high rates in open access 3-year courses. The causes are many: economic, motivational, and orientation related. Research into university dropout rates identifies the entry phase as the period of greatest risk. A 1987 study shows that staying at university largely depends on the student's academic and social integration during the first few months. This vulnerability is even more pronounced for first-generation students, the first in their family to attend university. Those who don't have university experience in their family cannot draw on that informal knowledge about how a university works, the deadlines, the language, the unwritten procedures. They do not have a starting point and find themselves having to navigate a complex information environment without being able to rely on the experience of those who have gone before them. In these terms, an unclear information environment is not neutral. It comes at a cost. A cost that is paid in the form of dropout, confusion, and abandonment. So, how do you create truly understandable university communication? There is a well-established approach adopted by public institutions throughout the Western world called plain language or clear language. It's not a simplified style, it's a method for writing understandable text without losing precision. The goal is very simple. The recipient must be able to understand the message at first reading without needing to read it again or look for explanations elsewhere. The operational criteria of plain language are 4: short sentences, ideally under 20 words, verbs in the active form, not "the application is submitted," but "submit the application," common words instead of technical jargon when possible, and a hierarchical structure of information. First the essentials, then the details. It's not about dumbing down the content, but about making accessible what is already clear in the writer's mind. How can the readability of a text actually be measured? For the Italian language, relying on intuition alone is not enough. There is also a measurement tool. This is the Gull-Pease Index, developed by Lucesano and Piemontese in 1988 and validated on a large corpus of Italian institutional texts. The index assigns a score from 0 to 100 based on 2 factors: the average sentence length and the average word length. The main thresholds are as follows: below 40, understandable mainly for those with a university degree; between 40 and 60, understandable for those with a secondary school diploma; above 60, understandable for those with a lower secondary school certificate; over 80, understandable even with only a primary school certificate. Where do you think the academic regulations and student guides of Italian universities fall? Unfortunately, the answer does not surprise those who work in this field. Past studies on the institutional documents of Italian universities have already shown very low readability. Regulations, student guides, and administrative notices prove difficult to understand. It is a trend that many university staff still recognize today. The result is clear: Most of these texts have a Gulpes index below 40. In practice, they are only understandable to those who already have a degree. But first year students do not yet have a degree, and often do not even have a family background that prepares them for bureaucratic academic language. They do not know what a part-time course of study is, nor can they distinguish between credits earned and credits recognised. Communicating in this way is not just a sign of inefficiency, it becomes a form of institutional inequality. This is where generative artificial intelligence comes into play as a genuine support tool. Researchers in plain language themselves have shown that clearer texts significantly reduce requests for clarification at help desks, in some cases by 10 to 20%. This becomes a tangible saving for any university. If instructed according to plain language principles, generative artificial intelligence can perform three main functions. First, to rewrite bureaucratic texts in a more accessible way, adapting the register to the target audience. For example, it can help an administrative office to rephrase a notice, keeping the regulatory content intact but making it more readable for a first-year student. Second, to calculate the Gulpes index of an existing document and suggest versions with higher scores. Third, to highlight ambiguities and specialized terminology, for example, expressions like recognized credits, part-time study, or conditional enrollment, which often lead to requests for clarification. Language models can perform these tasks with interesting results, sometimes comparable to those of experienced editors. But, and this is a crucial point, the final validation remains a human responsibility. A text may be formally more readable, but may be inaccurate from a regulatory point of view, or even inconsistent with the institution's procedures. Let's try to sum things up. The entry and orientation phase is the most critical step in the university communication process. Those who are not reached by clear communications risk not finding their place within the institution. Plain language and the Gulpes Index offer concrete tools to measure and improve the quality of texts. Artificial intelligence can concretely support this work in rewriting, measuring readability, and identifying ambiguities. But oversight and validation remain human responsibilities. Clarity is not just a technical matter, it's an ethical choice. Anyone who writes a university communication decides, even unconsciously, who they are really speaking to.